All right, everybody, thank you for taking some time to watch the next video in our Executive Benefits Simplified series. Today, we're going to talk about a thrilling topic. I'm sure when you saw the title of the video, it got your heart going a little bit, but corrective distributions in 401k plans. My name is David Cox. I work at Benefit RFP alongside Bob .nienaber, founder of our firm. And today we're going to be talking about corrective distributions in 401k plans. And as we turn to that topic, it's a very, very complex topic. We're not going to get that complex today. Otherwise, it would be executive benefits complicated. So we're going to go pretty high level. And what I'll say up front is, if you're working in a situation where your company sponsors a plan and you have questions about the non-discrimination testing, how it works, how to fix it, all the different things to consider, reach out to us. I know I've had the pleasure in my career of working with several of, in my opinion, the best third-party administrators in the country, and I would be happy to make an introduction if it's a question that potentially I can't answer or something that, a little bit too in the weeds for us. I'd be happy to make an introduction. But as we talk about 401k plans, qualified plans, one of the requirements that they have is that they're tested. And these non-discrimination tests, the whole purpose of them is that the IRS doesn't want a company to allow their highly compensated employees, like C-suite owners and so forth, doesn't want them to receive a benefit through the 401k that's significantly greater than the benefit that's received by the rank and file employees. And so in this testing, they're literally taking those two groups, highly compensated and not highly compensated, and testing them together to look at things like how much are they on average contributing, how much is the company contributing on average to both of those groups. And what happens is if a plan is not safe harbor and it fails these tests, the highly compensated folks actually receive corrective distributions or refunds from the plan. It literally, money comes out of the plan that was contributed in an amount equal to the amount necessary to pass the tests. And they also kick out earnings. So here you are, taking part in a plan, doing what everybody says you're supposed to do. You're saving your 12 to 15% or so, whatever that number is, for your future. And lo and behold, somebody from HR sends you an email one day that says, hey, we're sending you a check for $8,000 or $12,000. For one, be nice to your HR person. It's not their fault. It's never an easy conversation for them to have. In my experience, and I've worked with hundreds of 401k plans, ranging from startup plans at small companies all the way up through hundreds of millions of dollars in assets, with a fleet of HR people. The common trend there, why it's not fun for HR, is that the folks getting those distributions are not happy. And rightfully so. You save this money and now here I am getting it back and I'm paying taxes on it as if I'd never contributed to the plan. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the non-discrimination, the testing process. And the whole point, again, is just to make sure that the folks who are getting the benefit from the plan, who are high earners, aren't getting too much of a benefit as compared to those lower paid counterparts. Seems kind of crazy. What are your thoughts, Bob?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd probably take a little different look on that. I would say don't blame the HR person the first time around, but if it happens twice, and yeah, take your head off, blame them. Because you're not only getting your deferral back, you're also getting any associated company match with that. So it is costing you, and it's not just costing you that year if it's not being taken care of, it's cost you ongoing. The bigger problem, though, that exists when you start seeing these types of situations, and I was just joking, of course, with the HR folks, but when you start seeing a trend like this going on, usually a couple things are happening. One, a company starts looking at how to make the 401k better. They start introducing things like safe harbor. And now all of a sudden you start getting forced contributions from the company to everybody that's eligible and for the plans. You're getting immediate vesting, which means even though you put the money in, participants that are in there could take off any point in time. And it's been long studied and proven that safe harbor plans do not promote retention of any kind with a company. So rather than go and take a bad situation and make it worse, I think going through some of these things that David and I are about to talk about will help ease this so that you can understand that there's absolutely no reason why this has to continue, and how simple it is to actually fix it, and how your senior executives are going to go from being angry to loving you to death when the plan is properly set up.
Yep. And I will pat myself on the back for a moment and say I probably know more about 401ks, and I don't know if that's something I'm proud of, but it's just true. I probably know more about 401ks than most people, simply with the work that I've done over the course of my career. I have left jobs for opportunities, knowing that I was going to forfeit some of the employer contribution in the 401k, and I still left for a better opportunity. And so it just kind of popped into my head as you were talking about, the vesting and how, using safe harbor doesn't necessarily affect, retention and things like that. And I would say in my own experience, you're spot on. So safe harbor is just a group of options that an employer can select that basically gives them a pass on the testing that we talked about. That's all it is. And they have to meet certain requirements. It's certain vesting. Typically, it's going to be immediate vesting on employer money. There's some flexibility there, but you have to elect other plan features like automatic enrollment, and that'll give you the flexibility to do some, like a 2-year cliff vesting, that kind of a thing. There are specific employer contribution formulas that you can pick from. So it is a fairly rigid approach to it in order to get this pass on the testing. And so it's okay. I mean, it's an option. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a good option, but it is an option that's out there to companies. If your plan is consistently not passing the testing, then this is a way that you can appropriately and within the rules, you can get a pass on that test and allow your highly compensated folks to take advantage of the plan. I've also helped clients where we intentionally looked at automatic enrollment and automatic deferral increases. So rather than go immediate to safe harbor, the client in particular that I have in mind, they were open to the automatic enrollment. They had a good payroll provider. They had a staff that was very competent, more than competent, and they were able to administer the automatic enrollment and then the annual increases in employee contributions. And they did this rather than just go safe harbor because they wanted to maintain their vesting. They wanted to recapture some of that employer money in the plan when people left. They happened to be in a higher turnover environment. And so, initially when we first started, the president of the company was receiving back, north of $10,000 a year. And in just 1 year's time, that was cut in half. And in 2 years' time, that distribution to the owner was cut down to almost zero, a few $100 by just the end of that second year. And it's through having those sorts of plan design conversations and figuring out what works well for you. There are other things you can do, timing, you can look back, you can, for testing, you can use prior year testing results. I've seen mixed response with that. What that does is we look back at last year. And if last year, the HCEs, based on the testing from that plan year, the HCEs could contribute 5%, then you go to your highly compensated folks and you say, look, you guys can do up to 5% this year. What sometimes happens, if we're human, is sometimes people don't go in and make that change. And so even though you went out with the best of intentions and you told them what they could save, they still went out and did more, and that can be problematic. You can look at other types of contributions like profit sharing. There are different things. We love our acronyms in this business, QNEC, QMAC. There are different types of contributions that you can use, but that costs the company more money at the end of the day. And so another option, one we've talked about in some of our other videos, is this notion of a carve out. So you take your highly compensated folks and you simply make them ineligible for that 401k plan. It's that simple. You cannot defer, you cannot receive employer match. And then you set up a non-qualified plan can function almost the same. Doesn't have to. It could be different. You could have a different match for this group in the non-qualified plan as you do for everybody else in the qualified plan. And so it allows you then, instead of worrying about testing and doing all these different things, you can build a plan that works for you in the qualified world for your non-highly compensated employees, and then have this non-qualified plan that sits next to it for your key contributors and highest earners. And you can set the rules for them as you see fit, as long as they fit within the rules of the non-qualified world. It's a pretty simple solution. I think sometimes people look at it and make it more than it is, but at its base level, it's a very, very simple solution to a very common problem. In terms of kind of our process, how we can help, I just want to revisit this quickly. We work with all kinds of groups, whether they have plans currently or whether they're looking at implementing some of these plans. And we can take you through our process. We don't charge for this. So for a whopping invoice of $0.00, we can take you through our process, help you understand how all this would work. Again, if you have a 401k and you're exploring non-qualified plans, or if you don't have anything, or if you have them both, we can work with you to just help you understand how all these parts move together and how we can best maximize it for your company and your participants. Our contact information is on the screen. Please feel free to give us a call, shoot us an email, and check out our website. We have a number of other educational videos out there that you might enjoy checking out the content.